Not all Titans are built for speed. Some are built for pure, unbridled power. Let's take a look at Scorch and how best to incinerate your enemies in the tech test. Scorch, like every other Titan revealed so far, has 3 main abilities, in addition to an ultimate core ability and a primary weapon. These main abilities fall into 3 classes: Ordnance, Tactical, and Defensive. Let's break down the loadout first, and then we'll talk about tactics. By the way, I've unfortunately lost a lot of footage by accidentally breaking my external hard drive on stream a couple of days ago. So some of the things I talk about here won't have footage directly correlating it, but just try to use your imagination as best you can, and we'll get through it just fine. Back to Scorch. Your primary weapon, the T-203 Thermite Launcher, is a single-shot grenade launcher that explodes in a small radius on impact. Deals good direct impact damage to Titans, instantly kills pilots, as well as some damage over time if you choose to buff that with one of your Titan customizations. With reloads factored in, you can compare this weapon's fire rate and optimal range to the arc cannon with capacitor from Titanfall 1. While not as deadly overall, this is a weapon built to combo with the rest of Scorch's kit. In fact, everything in Scorch's kit is highly synergistic and meant to be comboed together to be maximally effective. Your ordnance is Firewall, a directed wall of thermite launched in an enemy's direction. This is mapped to R1 and right bumper by default. Generally, you want your engagements as a Scorch to be well within the range of this ability. Not always, but that's your rule of thumb. Don't let your opponents dance around the outside. You gotta either get in close enough or back off and work with cover. A little bit more on that later. This ability mainly deals damage over time, so focus on using it as an area denial tool more so than direct damage that you aim at an enemy Titan. While it's okay for using in that role, generally you really want to deny space with it whenever you possibly can. That's usually the better usage of this ordnance. Luckily, the cooldown is fairly short, so don't feel too bad if you have to use it in a suboptimal way or if you just completely whiff a firewall. It's not the end of the world. You'll get one back pretty quickly. Your tactical ability is Incendiary Trap. There are a lot of different ways to apply it, and we'll talk about some of the specifics a little bit later. All you need to know right now is that you get 2 charges of it, and it shoots in a tall arc from the top of your Titan. Because of the high angle that it's shot from, you can shoot it over buildings or on top of roofs without too much hassle in order to saturate areas with thermite that other Titans could never hope to reach with any of their abilities. Every ability that Scorch has will ignite the traps that you fire, dealing an initial burst of damage as well as an additional damage over time to anyone that remains in the blast radius. Very powerful, but must be used intelligently in order to make Scorch tick. As a quick note, I've generally found that you don't want to lead off with the Incendiary Trap. You want your opponent not to see you firing this, because if they see you shooting it out first, they can predict where it's going to land and get out of the area very easily, mitigating the damage that you could potentially deal. If you fire your other thermite weapons first and then follow it up with the Incendiary Trap, they can't get away. You can basically hit confirm the thermite that you're firing with the explosive effect of the Incendiary Trap after for more damage. It really works very well once you practice it a little bit. It may sound weird in theory, but once you actually are able to accomplish this in practice, it works very, very well. Your defensive ability is Thermal Shield. Much like the Vortex Shield of Ion, this is going to protect you from incoming fire. The main difference here is that instead of catching enemy fire and letting you fire it back at them, the Thermal Shield simply melts it and negates it. The benefits of this shield are that it instead deals direct damage to anything in contact with it. If you're in melee range with an enemy Titan, don't bother punching them, just give them the heat shield and you're golden. You both deal high enough DPS to whatever you're melting, as well as protecting yourself from the all-out assault they're about to put on you, that this is your number one weapon of choice in the point-blank fighting scenario. It's also great for warding away enemy pilots that are trying to rodeo you. It does so much DPS that it's nearly impossible for them to get through the shield and rodeo you without dying. I personally underuse this ability very much, especially in the clips that you're seeing here, but it's very powerful in the off chance you actually get to use it offensively. Your primary use case is still going to be defensive, don't get me wrong, but this thing does rip if you're given the chance to actually put it in somebody's face. Finally, your core ability is Flame Core. Slam the ground in front of you and unleash a wave of thermite that deals about 1/3 of Ion's health bar in terms of damage. It's fairly unlikely that you'll actually ever combine this with Incendiary Traps, but when you do, you've got a very dead enemy Titan on your hands. Let's move on to tactics. Generally, Scorch excels in a defensive role in tight spaces. Boomtown is absolutely the preferred map for a Scorch in the tech test, but that doesn't mean he can't find a home on more open maps like Homestead. Whether you're playing Scorch aggressively or passively, he's best played in a defensive manner. Just because you're big and have the most health doesn't mean that you should play out in the open. You've got to play with cover, buildings, and corners as staples in order to succeed. Peeking is your best friend with Scorch. All your damage comes in one big burst, and you have absolutely no reason to be exposing yourself most of the time. As an aside, let's have a quick word about animation cancels. Basically, a lot of Scorch's abilities can be cancelled into other things. As Scorch, you have kind of like a 1-2-3 punch that enables you to deal big bursts of damage in the minimum amount of time possible. So basically what you want to do is fire your primary weapon. As soon as you actually fire it, you immediately drop a firewall, and while you're in the firewall animation, you can actually throw out one of your incendiary traps. These animations do not conflict with one another, so you can do both at the same time. So basically, you're shooting out all of your offensive abilities all at once in the span of like less than 1 second, and then popping back behind cover and just dealing a huge burst of damage to whatever it is that you're fighting. It's very, very powerful, very effective, and something that you need to learn to master if you want to play Scorch as offensively and aggressively and effectively as you possibly can. There's a lot of other animation cancels that Scorch can do, like for example, whenever you're actually reloading the thermite launcher, whenever you see Scorch actually place the thermite grenade into the launcher, you'll see your ammo counter change from 0 to 1. You don't have to go through the entire animation before you fire your weapon again. So what you do here is as soon as you see that ammo counter switch to 1, you would just tap your fire shield very, very shortly, very quickly. Just enough to raise it and then drop it again. This has two effects. One, you're going to block a little bit of incidental damage, and if you multiply this by 5, 10, 15, 20 shots before your Titan goes down, that's a lot of damage that you've potentially blocked and extra health that you've essentially given your Titan, potentially. Will it actually work out this way? Probably not, but potentially you're saving a little bit of health. But the main thing is that you are canceling that reload animation, so you're able to start shooting your weapon potentially a little bit faster. I haven't actually tested this. I'm not sure if it is actually faster, so don't take it as gospel that it is. But it may be about, a little faster, about the same, or a little bit slower. But regardless, it's still kind of fine no matter what, because it enables you to be a little bit more defensive than you normally would. Or maybe you just want to go straight into the offensive with your fire shield, but you don't think that you're going to be able to completely kill an enemy target with it, so you want to have another round in your grenade launcher ready to go. You can be a little bit patient and wait for that grenade to actually get placed into the launcher before you bring that fire shield up, so you can really maximize your damage as soon as that fire shield is expired and you've used up the entire quantity that you have in your battery stored up. So with all that in mind, here's the basic flowchart for Scorch. Find your cover, fire your gun, drop a firewall, and toss an incendiary trap. In that order. Everything should land on your target at around the same time, and it's going to nuke them pretty good. Step behind cover at this point and just reload. If your enemy's foolish enough to continue fighting you, you simply combo them again with your primary and another trap, and you could even start walking in on them with a thermal shield if you really wanted to. Big damage for little risk. Only thing here is to really be careful of your own thermite. You damage yourself with it and it adds up pretty quickly. Keep an eye on your positioning and your health bar. Also, as a rule of thumb, don't use your core ability on an enemy with less than a third of their health. You'll just set them to the doom state with none of your damage carrying over. More often than not, it's probably a waste. Sure, there could be situations where that's what you really need to do in a given moment, like if you got a teammate who's trying to execute or something, but that's the exception and not the rule. And if you're not really understanding why you don't want to use your core against someone that's close to becoming doomed but isn't already doomed, is this. Let's make up some arbitrary numbers to demonstrate the point. Let's say that a Titan has 100 hit points. Let's say that Flame Core does 9 million damage. Okay, let's absolutely absurd numbers, but let's just say that those are true. Let's accept them to be true for this argument. When a Titan is dropped down into the doomed state, all overflow damage, all damage over the health that they currently have, does not get applied to the doom state. It just simply evaporates. So if you have a Titan with 10 health points left over and it takes 9 million damage, it's not going to be left at negative 8,999,990. It's going to be left at the exact amount of health that the doom state has. All that extra damage goes away, is a wash, it doesn't matter. So by using your Flame Core against an enemy Titan that's not going to take most of or all the damage from it, you're kind of wasting the Flame Core in a lot of ways. It's a little bit iffy of a topic. you know, it does allow you to kill a Titan a little bit faster. That can protect your life bar, can protect your teammates, blah, blah, blah. But if you're in a one-on-one fight and you kind of just really don't care about being perfectly efficient, I guess it's okay to use it. But if you're trying to maximize your efficiency, be intelligent about when you use the flame core. It's not always the right call just to use it to doom somebody, because you're still going to have to work just as hard to kill them out of their doom state, and they might just get away. You know, what does it make a difference if they get away with, you know, a quarter of their health bar versus if they get away in the doom state? They still have gotten away, and they have a pretty decent chunk of life to work with still. So be intelligent about when you use it, but that's kind of more of an advanced technique of min-maxing. That's not really something that's within the scope of this guide, but just be aware of it. That's something that you could focus on a little bit once you're comfortable with doing everything else with Scorch, is to focus on when you time your flame core. If you're trying to be aggressive with Scorch, you still have to play pretty much the same way as you would if you're playing defensively. You don't want to have to use your big health total except for when you really, really need it. You want to play smart and preserve it for when you need to go in on somebody with your flame core or with flame shield or something like that. Using it before that is generally a no-go. Get up in the enemy space on the map, get some cover, and start shelling them from a distance. It doesn't really matter if you're outside of firewall range or not. If they charge you, great news. You pretty much already win. Most of your abilities are going to be on or off cooldown, they're going to be ready to go, and you can nuke somebody who starts to walk in on you. If they run away from you, also good news. You've taken control of their area of the map. Scorch excels at map control. Play him this way and you're sure to find success. This is what makes him still usable on big maps like Homestead, albeit probably more in a team-oriented application with voice communications as opposed to a solo pub game. For a team composition, consider running Scorch almost exclusively on the elevated rocky side of the map. You'll AoE enemy Titans off of it without too much stress, and you're going to gain map control of the high ground to artillery people from above and to allow your Ion players to set up. It's a win-win scenario. The tight corridors of this rocky area are pretty much the bread and butter for where Scorch excels. He wants those tight confined areas that enemies can't get away from his thermite in. The open fields, he struggles a lot more because enemies have so much room to maneuver. Scorch does not want his enemy opponents to be able to maneuver. So in conclusion, you have to accept Scorch for what he is. He has a lot of shortcomings. He has difficulty dealing with enemy pilots that are trying to rodeo him if he doesn't have electric smoke and he misses his one shot in his thermite launcher. He's kind of SOL unless he can get a punch off. So played poorly, he's just as bad as an ogre with a railgun from Titanfall 1. But if you play him smart, preserve your life total, and go aggressive when the time is right, only poking out normally long enough to burst people down, you're going to find a lot of success with him. Good luck using this Titan in the tech test, pilots. And I'll be back with a full review of Scorch in the full release when we have the whole gamut of other content to compare him against. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.